kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Shrimadaatatam Bhuviganantiye Bhurida Janaha. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Last time we were discussing the entry from October 16th, 1882, and it's not done yet, and so we'll continue with this entry from October 16th, 1882. The whole section is focused on Sri Ramakrishna's beloved Naren, the future Swami Vivekananda, as we'll see. So let me plunge right in. It's a long section. It's the beginning of a new chapter in the original Bengali, Pancham Porichid, chapter 5. And the title of this chapter in the Bengali is Kirtananande Narendra Prabhuti Shonge Narendroke Premalingon. Very beautiful. Okay. Sri Ramakrishna is with Narendra and others enjoying the bliss of Kirtan, this divine music. Narendroke Premalingon. And he hugs, embraces Naren out of love. That's the title. So you see what you're missing, you guys who don't know Bengali. All right. So let's begin with the English. Late in the afternoon, Narendra sang. Rakhal, Latu, M, Hazra, and Priyo, Narendra's Brahmo friend, were present. The singing was accompanied by the drum. Meditate, O my mind, on the Lord Hari, the stainless one, pure spirit through and through. How peerless is the light that in him shines. How soul bewitching is his wondrous form. How dear is he to all his devotees. Now, in the English, there's a ... This is not the end of the song, but Naren actually completes the song. The reason why there's ... is because the same song was sung way back during M's third visit. If any of you have a super good memory, you'll remember that this song was sung then, and the whole text of the song was printed then. And Nikanji, when a song is repeated, he doesn't give the entire text, all the lyrics. So that's why there are those dots. But I wanted to remind us of that that bit of the third visit, M's third visit to Sri Ramakrishna, when that song was sung. Narendra sang the song. It's one of his favorites. And right after... I'll start from where... So, during M's third visit, after Naren sings, how dear is he to all his devotees, Naren continues, ever more beauteous in fresh blossoming love, that shames the splendor of a million moons. Like lightning gleams the glory of his form, raising erect the hair for very joy. The master, this is from M's third visit. The master shuddered when this last line was sung. His hair stood on end, and tears of joy streamed down his cheeks. Now and then his lips parted in a smile. Was he seeing the peerless beauty of God that shames the splendor of a million moons? Was this the vision of God, the essence of spirit? And then it continues. But the reason I mention this is because music plays such an outsized role in this text, the gospel. There's constantly singing going on in Sri Ramakrishna when he's either singing himself or listening to a song being sung. He often goes into these ecstatic spiritual states, samadhi states. So we should remember that music has a special power, that it can elevate you to the very state that it's describing in the song, right? So right as a song is mentioning that the hair is being raised. At that very moment, Sri Ramakrishna is listening, and then he's actually experiencing horripilation, which means, the hairs stand erect. And so music is a very powerful spiritual practice if you adopt the right kind of attitude toward it. The most dangerous thing with singing is singing for others. So you should, when you sing, you should be singing for God, and typically to God. So think of singing as a kind of prayer directly to God. It's just between you and God. I think that's the safest route. Even if you happen to be singing in a room full of thousands, let's say, even then, if you can maintain that attitude, just you and God, and you're singing to God, then that's really wonderful. Another thing, this is the first of a number of songs that Naren will sing in this episode that we'll be discussing today. And these songs, as far as I'm aware, are all songs composed by Brahmo Samaj members. Because Naren, remember, this is October 16th, 1882. He was a member of the Brahmo Samaj. And they had a special understanding of God. What kind of God did they believe in, the Brahmo Samaj? Does anyone know? Not just formless, but... Very good, exactly. Here's the way to think about it. There are 4 Sanskrit terms, which are the same in Bengali. Nirguna, Saguna, Nirakara, Sakara. So they're actually you can think about it as 2 axes. Okay. So Nirguna means without any qualities, without attributes, impersonal, without even those omni-attributes of the personal God, like being loving, omniscient, omnipotent, not even those. The Nirguna Brahman of Advaita Vedanta is not personal. It doesn't have any of those attributes. The opposite side of that axis, the vertical axis, is Saguna Brahman. That means the personal God with omni-attributes, the omniscient, omnipotent, creator God who loves us, who responds to our prayers, and so on and so forth. The other axis, horizontal axis, we've got on one side Sakara, and on the other side, Nirakara. Sakara means with form. And on the other side is Nirakara, without form. Okay. Advaita Vedanta believes in ultimate reality as Nirguna and Nirakara, formless and impersonal, without any attributes. Excuse me, I have a bit of a cold. Okay. On the other hand, you get bhakti traditions that believe in incarnations, that believe in forms of God. So what do they believe in? Saguna and Sakara. Saguna means with omni-attributes, with the attributes of the personal God. And Sakara means with form also. That doesn't mean that God can't be formless, but God also has forms. The form of Kali with the 4 arms and so on and so forth, Ganesha and Hanuman, all these different forms. And God can also incarnate as a human being. That's another form of God, right? God in the form of a human being. But then there's a third permutation of these 4 terms. You can believe in God as Nirakara but Saguna, formless but personal. And you're right. The Brahmo Samaj view is that God is formless but personal, which means they're still bhaktas. So the reason I say this is because I think a lot of people, they tend to conflate formless with the impersonal, and that's a serious mistake. It's not always the case. In fact, we have not just Brahmo Samaj, Islam, Sikhism. They all believe in the formless but personal God. And their traditions have examples of the greatest bhaktas. And these songs are a good example. You can, if you study these songs in the original Bengali, you'll see what depth of spiritual and devotional fervor they have. So just because you believe in the formless doesn't mean that you're not devotional. These songs are profoundly devotional. And another thing I'll say is that Naren singing these songs is, I think, very significant. Because for those of you who are only familiar with, or mostly familiar with his complete works, which are his rousing lectures in India, in the West, you don't find him singing anywhere. You find him giving these extremely eloquent, philosophically dense lectures on the microcosm, macrocosm, Vedanta, and this and that. A lot of Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge. Not so much his bhakti side. It's in the gospel that you see Naren's bhakti side. He was an extraordinarily gifted singer. Everybody acknowledged that. And Sri Ramakrishna, of course, felt that himself. And it reminds me of something that Swami Vivekananda said toward the end of his life. He was speaking to his disciple Nivedita, Sister Nivedita. And he said, roughly, while Sri Ramakrishna was all bhakti on the outside, he was all jnana on the inside. And while I, Swamiji is saying, am all jnana on the outside, I am all bhakti on the inside. And then he makes a slightly un-PC statement after that. And he says, and when I am on the heights of bhakti, something like that, he says, I'm apt to weep like a woman. Okay. So you see Naren's bhakti side here very strongly in these beautiful songs. Let's continue with the next song. And in this next song, The whole thing is printed because it's the first time that this song occurs in the gospel. After this song, Narendra saying, "Oh, when will dawn for me that day of blessedness, when he who is all good, all beauty, and all truth will light the inmost shrine of my heart? When shall I sink at last, ever beholding him, into that ocean of delight? Lord, as infinite wisdom thou shalt enter my soul, and my unquiet mind, made speechless by thy sight, will find a haven at thy feet. In my heart's firmament, O Lord, thou wilt arise as blissful immortality. And as when the chakora beholds the rising moon, it sports about for very joy, so too shall I be filled with heavenly happiness when thou appearest unto me. Thou one without a second, all peace, the King of kings. At thy beloved feet I shall renounce my life, and so at last shall gain life's goal. I shall enjoy the bliss of heaven while yet on earth. Where else is a boon so rare bestowed? Then shall I see thy glory, pure and untouched by stain. As darkness flees from light, so will my darkest sins desert me at thy dawn's approach. Kindle in me, O Lord, the blazing fire of faith to be the pole star of my life. O succor of the weak, fulfill my one desire. Then shall I bathe both day and night in the boundless bliss of thy love, and utterly forget myself, O Lord, attaining thee." It's a very beautiful song, especially in the original Bengali. This song in Bangla starts, "Shottong Shiva Sundara Rupo Bhati Hridi Mondire, Nirokhi Nirokhi Onodin Mora Dubibo Rup Shagore, Shedin Kope Hobe, Din Joner Bhagyenath." I'm sure my Bengali is off a little. My apologies for that. But I wanted to draw your attention to just a couple small things here. First of all, there are a few phrases here that are strongly Vedantic in character, and that's very typical of Brahmo songs because for them the main scripture is the Upanishads. And they often bodily lift passages from the Upanishads and put them in their songs in a very beautiful way. So for instance, the very first word, Satyam Shivam Sundaram, you must have heard that. It's one of the main epithets for God. One of the most famous is Satchitananda. This is also a very famous version of the same thing. Satyam means truth, Shivam means auspicious, glorious, and Sundaram means beautiful, divine beauty. And then in the second stanza that I just read, there's a line, "Then shall I see thy glory pure and untouched by stain." And this is actually, one second. It's from Isha Upanishad, the 8th mantra, Shuddham Apapavidham. Shuddham Apapavidham Roop, Hiriyanat Tomar. So it's directly quoting from the Isha Upanishad, 8th mantra. Shuddha means pure, and Apapavidham means untouched by sin or stain. So these are very Vedantic songs, but full of devotion. And another thing I wanted to mention, a little bit of literary analysis here. So in the first 5 lines, the speaker of the song is referring to God in the third person. "Oh, when will dawn for me that day of blessedness, when he who is all good, all beauty, and all truth will light the inmost shrine of my heart? When shall I sink at last, ever beholding him," third person, "into that ocean of delight?" Suddenly, starting in the 6th line, notice, "Lord, as infinite wisdom, thou shalt enter my soul." Now second person. The speaker is directly addressing God, and it becomes a very moving, heartfelt prayer directed directly to God. And the rest of the song is actually addressing God in the second person. So this is a very effective way, even from listening to music, but also singing yourself. It's a very effective way to pray to God in the way that Sri Ramakrishna recommended, because he would always say, pray to God with tears in your eyes. And as I often emphasize, by listening to music or singing music, it's one of the easiest ways to really tap into your feelings in a way that just repeating something verbatim is not, or just saying something verbally doesn't quite work. What? Yeah, it taps into something very primal and deep. Yeah, absolutely. It resonates. Okay, so let's continue with the entry. Next song. So Naren is just he's in a singing marathon, and Sri Ramakrishna is in bliss listening. Narendra saying again. With beaming face, chant the sweet name of God, till in your heart the nectar overflows. Drink of it ceaselessly and share it with all. If ever your heart runs dry, parched by the flames of worldly desire. Chant the sweet name of God, and heavenly love will moisten your arid soul. Be sure, O mind, you never forget to chant his holy name. When danger stares in your face, call on him, your Father compassionate. With his name's thunder, snap the fetters of sin. Come, let us fulfill our heart's desires by drinking deep of everlasting joy, made one with him in love's pure ecstasy. Yeah. Well, can you give the mic to him? 1 second.
The song says, chant the sweet name of God.
Yeah.
Chant is in there a couple of times. Is it the same as singing, or is it the same as like mantra repetition?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, because the word chant is kind of misleading here, I think, because it's not chanting. The Bengali is, the first line is Ananda bodone bolo mudur brahmo nam. Bolo just means say or speak. One interesting thing about this song is that this is not being addressed to God. We're addressing our own minds. It's another way that, another one of Sri Ramakrishna's favorite songs that Naren would sing begins with the word mind. Mono cholo nijo niketone. O mind, come to your own blissful abode with the divine. So this is another genre of song where you're addressing your own mind and trying to elevate the mind to a divine level, spiritual level. And so yes, chant doesn't actually mean mantra chanting. It just means it could actually. It could mean that you should be like you're telling your mind to do japa. It could also mean sing, because this is literally a song, and so it could be self-reflexive, and it could be that you're telling your own mind to sing with sincerity and with devotion. But the other thing I wanted to point out in that first line, the sweet name of God here is Modur Brahmonam, Brahmanama, the sweet Brahmanama. Brahma is a signal that this is a Brahmo Samaj song, because they would refer to God as Brahman, because that's from the Upanishads, right? So there are little signals from these songs that these are Brahmo songs. In the previous song, there were little Upanishadic references from the Isha Upanishad and other ones. In this one, Brahmanama. And sometimes Sri Ramakrishna would refer to the followers of Brahmo Samaj as Idaning Brahmogani. I think it's like slightly, he said it very respectfully, but there's like a slight, like kind of a backhanded compliment, because Idaning means contemporary, and Brahmogani means knower of Brahman. And most of them weren't knowers of Brahman. And so, and then the contemporary part, it's kind of like suggesting it's a little bit of a poke, like, oh, you guys think you're something really special and new, modern, new, a little bit of a, oh, you guys are newfangled or something like that. I get that sense. So it's kind of a double backhanded compliment, because it's the newfangled in the Idaning, the contemporary, and then also Brahmogani, because it's a little slightly sarcastic, I'd say. Some of them may have been, but many were, not. And I actually like the translations in general of these songs, so I'm not going to point out anything, except here, one thing, which I think is very significant. It's in the fourth and fifth lines of the song in English. If ever your heart runs dry, parched by the flames of worldly desire, chant the sweet name of God, and heavenly love will moisten your arid soul. Actually, it's Jodi hoy kokhon shushko hridoy koro naam gan, bishoy morichikaye pore he, preme hridoy shorosho hobe he. This parched by the mind, parched by the flames of worldly desire, that's beautiful, but the original, I think, is even more expressive. It's Vishaya Marichikai Porehe. It's kind of the same in Sanskrit, Vishaya Marichika. It's not the flames of worldly desire. The metaphor is not flames. There often are in other scriptures and all that, but in this case, it's not flames. Marichika means a kind of mirage. An illusion, a mirage, a phantom. And Vishaya Marichika, Vishaya means sense pleasures, sense enjoyments, worldly pleasures in general, worldly enjoyments. And so actually, I think this is much more evocative in the original Bengali. It's not parched by the flames, but falling into the delusion of this mirage of worldly pleasure, basically. It's like, we know, because we've been through this so many times before, we know that we're not going to get that fulfillment we're looking for, and yet again and again we keep falling into that same cycle, that same trap. So that's what I think is expressed in that phrase, which is kind of missed by parched by the flames of worldly desire. So I would say something like, you'd have to like reword the whole sentence actually, but you get the idea now, I hope. Deluded by the mirage of, and it's not worldly desire actually, vishaya. It means the sense objects themselves, which is even more expressive, right? It's not the desire, but, huh? Yeah. Worldly enjoyments, worldly pleasures. Okay. Okay, let's move on. Now, Narendra and the devotees began to sing kirtan, accompanied by the drum and cymbals. They moved round and round the master as they sang, "Immerse yourself forevermore, O mind, in him who is pure knowledge and pure bliss." They're repeating lines from these songs. Next they sang, "Oh, when will dawn for me that day of blessedness, when he who is all good, all beauty, and all truth will light the inmost shrine of my heart?" At last, Narendra himself was playing on the drums, and he sang with the master full of joy. So singing with Sri Ramakrishna, with beaming face, chant the sweet name of God. When the music was over, Sri Ramakrishna held Narendra in his arms a long time and said, "You have made us so happy today." The floodgate of the master's heart was opened so wide that night that he could hardly contain himself for joy. It was 8:00 in the evening. Intoxicated with divine love, he paced the long veranda north of his room. Now and then he could be heard talking to the Divine Mother. Suddenly he said in an excited voice, "What can you do to me?" Was the master hinting that Maya was helpless before him, since he had the Divine Mother for his support? The end is really interesting here. He often talks to Mother, but the phrase here is, "Tui ama ki korbi?" Very casual, informal Bengali, because the tui here signals that there's no formality here at all. What can you do to me? So it doesn't seem plausible to think that he's asking that to Divine Mother or something. We might, in a mood of pique or something, we don't know. So M is conjecturing that maybe he's addressing Maya, this delusive power of Maya, and saying, I'm not afraid of you because I have Divine Mother behind me, supporting me at all times. So that's M's suggestion, and Nikhilanji seems to like it because he writes it word for word. Sometimes he doesn't like M's suggestion so much, so he omits the comments, but in this case he left it here. Another thing I wanted to mention, a little project for you IT guys out there who may be interested in projects. All right. I would just love for there to be a website where the entire gospel is there, the text of the gospel, and anytime you come across a song, it's hypertexted, and you click on that hypertext, and it'll give you the transliteration, the original Bengali, the transliterated English, the exact Bengali transliteration, and an audio recording of the song that you can listen to so that you can get a flavor for the original. I would be ecstatic if anybody out there in person or online or some team could collaborate and do that. I would be very grateful, and many others throughout the world would be very grateful for that. Because what I do in lieu of that is I look up the first line of the song on YouTube and Spotify, and for instance, I found the first song, which is Chintaya mama manasho hori chit ghana niranjana. But the next one, I can't find it anywhere. So there's another task for you guys, either online or in person. This Satyam Shiva Sundara Rupa Bhati Ridi Mondire. This next song, right? Can you find it either on YouTube or Spotify or anywhere else? If you find a link to this song, I would love to listen to it because I want to know what the tune is. So put the link in the YouTube comments. I'd be very grateful if you can do that. All right. So let's continue. Narendra, M, and Priyo were going to spend the night at the temple garden. This pleased the master highly, especially since Narendra would be with him. The Holy Mother, footnote, by this name Sri Ramakrishna's wife was known among his devotees. It seems to be the first reference to Holy Mother here, otherwise there wouldn't be a footnote. The Holy Mother, who was living in the Nahabat, had prepared the supper. Shurendra, footnote, the name by which Sri Ramakrishna addressed Shudesh Mitra, a beloved householder disciple. Shurendra bore the greater part of the master's expenses. The meal was ready, and the plates were set out on the southeast veranda of the master's room. Near the east door of his room, Narendra and the other devotees were gossiping. Now, hold on a second here. Gossiping, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so first thing here, I want to mention something, a small point, but still, I think, somewhat significant. In the Bangla, right at the beginning, when it says, Narendra, M, and Priyo were going to spend the night at the temple garden, this pleased the master highly, especially since Narendra would be with him. The English translation here implies that the fact that all three of them were going to spend the night there pleased the master highly, but especially Narendra. Actually, he favors Narendra even more than the translation suggests, because it says, Narendra master Priyo ratre thakiben. Narendra thakiben, Thakurer anande shimane. So in the original, it's, Naren will stay. Therefore, Sri Ramakrishna's joy knows no bounds. He's just like completely, he loves Naren. And M just keeps rubbing it in. Like, if you remember from the last class, the same thing. It was like M is just kind of like, why does he love this Naren so much? Naren is just questioning him and challenging him all the time, kind of obnoxious. So anyway, but it's just little things, these little hints that you get. Okay, so the next section, this gossiping, actually that sentence is a new section, so let me tell you what the section heading is, because of course we don't have section headings in the English. So, original Bengali, this is the start of a new section. The section heading is, Narendra Prabhutike Shkul o Onnanno Bishoy Kotha Kohite Nishedh. Sri Ramakrishna forbids Naren and others to speak of worldly matters like school and other things. And it's a very interesting section. You see a different side of Narendra here. And very different. It's very different from what he becomes just a few years later when you see him in the West lecturing and all that. So let's read this section, new section. Near the east door of his room, Narendra and the other devotees were gossiping. Narendra, how do you find the young men nowadays? M. Remember, M is a teacher, school teacher. M. They are not bad, but they don't receive any religious instruction. Narendra. But from my experience, I feel they are going to the dogs. They smoke cigarettes, indulge in frivolous talk, enjoy foppishness, play truant, and do everything of that sort. I have even seen them visiting questionable places. M. I didn't notice such things during our student days. Narendra. Perhaps you didn't mix with the students intimately. I have even seen them talking with people of immoral character. Perhaps they are on terms of intimacy with them. M. It is strange indeed. Narendra. I know that many of them form bad habits. It would be proper if the guardians of the boys and the authorities kept their eyes on these matters. He's like 19. Anyway, they were talking thus when Sri Ramakrishna came to them and asked with a smile, well, what are you talking about? Narendra. I've been asking M about the boys in the schools. The conduct of students nowadays isn't all that it should be. The master became grave and said to M, rather seriously, this is really unjust. Anyway, said to M, rather seriously, this kind of conversation is not good. It isn't desirable to indulge in any talk but talk of God. You are their senior, and you are intelligent. You should not have encouraged them to talk about such matters. Narendra was then about 19 years old, and M about 28. Thus admonished, M felt embarrassed, and the others also fell silent. So what's the injustice here? Well, Naren is the one who started the conversation, and he very confidently admitted it. When Sri Ramakrishna asked, said, yeah, I was asking M about all these things. And instead of scolding Naren, he scolds poor M. You're the older one, because he'll never find anything wrong with Naren, you know? So it's good you don't have the mic with you. but it's true.
Is that you? Are you Naren?
No. I wish. I don't wish. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. And the other thing is here, it's interesting. We can reflect a little bit about why Sri Ramakrishna is so strongly discouraging these young guys from speaking about worldly matters. See, Narenda's point might be a completely valid one. I don't think he's lying. I think he saw the things that he saw. Ironically, he himself ends up smoking cigarettes eventually. So one lesson is be careful. You know, when you criticize others, often what happens is you end up finding that same fault in yourself. And the other thing is, even when you're pointing out faults of other people and you don't have that fault yourself, just by dwelling on those negative things, the mind can get soiled and stained. And I think Sri Ramakrishna had all that in mind, and also what Holy Mother used to say, that never find fault in others, look at your own faults. So that's kind of more from a spiritual standpoint as well. And so I think for a number of different reasons, Sri Ramakrishna is always discouraging that kind of talk. All right, let's continue. While the devotees were enjoying their meal, Sri Ramakrishna stood by and watched them with intense delight. That night, the master's joy was very great. After supper, the devotees rested on the mat spread on the floor of the master's room. They began to talk with him. It was indeed a mart of joy. The master asked Narendra to sing the song beginning with the line, "In wisdom's firmament, the moon of love is rising full." The song is, in Bengali, Chidakashe holopurno prem chandrodoy he. Here the translation is a little clunky. Wisdom's firmament. I don't love it. I'll explain what the original Bengali is in a second, but let's hear the song first. Narendra sang, and other devotees played the drums and cymbals. In wisdom's firmament, the moon of love is rising full, and love's flood tide in surging waves is flowing everywhere. O Lord, how full of bliss thou art, victory unto thee. On every side shine devotees like stars around the moon. Their friend, the Lord all-merciful, joyously plays with them. Behold, the gates of paradise today are open wide. The soft spring wind of the new day raises fresh waves of joy. Gently it carries to the earth the fragrance of God's love, till all the yogis, drunk with bliss, are lost in ecstasy. Upon the sea of the world unfolds the lotus of the new day, capital N, capital D. So this phrase new day comes up. You'll find out in a second why this is not the best translation. And there the mother sits enshrined in blissful majesty. See how the bees are mad with joy, sipping the nectar there. Behold the mother's radiant face, which so enchants the heart and captivates the universe. About her lotus feet, bands of ecstatic holy men are dancing in delight. What matchless loveliness is hers. What infinite content pervades the heart when she appears. O brothers, says Prem Das, I humbly beg you, one and all, to sing the mother's praise. This is another Brahmo Samaj song composed actually by Troilokanath Shonnal, one of the great composers. And there are a few things to note about this song. First of all, in wisdom's firmament, this wisdom's firmament, capital W, it's a much more beautiful and expressive and spiritual phrase in the original Bengali. Chidakasha. In Sanskrit, chidakasha. Chit means consciousness. Akasha means sky. The infinite sky of consciousness. So that's how the song begins. Chidakashe holopurno prem chandrodoy he. It means in this infinite sky of consciousness, there is the full moon of divine love. Prem chandrodoy. That moon of divine love is rising. Another thing is this. The refrain in this song in the Bengali is joy doyamoy, joy doyamoy, joy doyamoy, repeated 3 times, and that refrain comes 3 times. Okay, joy doyamoy, joy doyamoy, joy doyamoy. Dayamoy means compassionate one or loving one. And joy, it's actually very hard to translate this. Actually, just a couple days ago, Sharade Shaprana asked me, the nun who runs our bookstore, she said, how would you translate joy? It's extremely common in Indian languages. Joy Sri Ramakrishna, joy Ma, joy Swamiji. We say it all the time. And typically I find joy translated as victory to, which sounds kind of funny and weird. Glory to is another rendering of it. It's also, I mean, none of them really quite work, and it's very hard to translate it. Any suggestions here? Joy, what would be a better translation or the best translation of joy? Anyone, whatever the deity is, when you say joy to the deity, I think it has other connotations like may the will of Mother triumph always. It's a kind of thy will be done. It's at least part of the meaning of it, I think. Because victory...
It feels like victory is an okay word because it feels like
Yeah.
victory of her or of him or whatever.
Right, you're saying victory, you like victory, and it's because it does, it can imply
Like a triumph.
it is a triumph. It still sounds too specific a context. Like victory means in some kind of match or battle.
That's why we say it, right? We're in the experience of proclaiming. That's why you would even say it.
Yeah, militaristic. Yeah, and you're saying you don't mind that. You like the military. Yeah,
I don't think that's great.
yeah,
I'm just saying I like
yeah.
proclaiming what I want to proclaim.
Right. So okay, so you like victory, and I'm somehow not satisfied either with victory to or glory to. Huh? Hail. Hail is interesting.
Well, that's very malicious as well.
Yeah, that's very martial. Yeah, martial. Malicial is a nice new word that you made up. But yeah. well done there. Yeah, it's in your hands. It's an attitude of surrender. It's an attitude. It has a very. There are a lot of connotations. That's true too. It's a monosyllable and it's a joy, and it's often said very loudly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Depends on your own personality.
Yeah. When people do pranams, I often just go for my default is Jai Ma or Jai Thakur, That which means, I can't take your sin. That goes straight to Sri Ramakrishna. Yeah. Half a joke. Okay. All right. And the other thing, though, New Day, capital N, capital D. I think this is a serious mistranslation. I'm surprised because I'm pretty sure in the introduction, this beautiful introduction which Nikhilanji wrote, detailing the life of Sri Ramakrishna in very beautiful prose and also in a very succinct way, he talks about Keshab Chandra Sen and how Keshab, the great Brahmo leader, started a new sect called Navavidhan, which I think Nikhilanji himself translates as the new dispensation. The new dispensation, capital N, capital D, capital N, capital D. The same word is used here in the song, and yet Nikhilanji translates as new day, which just, there's no, did any of you know that this is referring to Keshab sect? No, right? Oh, you mean poetry-wise. Nice call. No, you're right, I think. Because let me read you the Bangla. It's so beautiful. It rolls off the tongue. And I can see why new dispensation with all those polysyllables, it doesn't quite. Nabobidhan boshanto somiron boy, chute tahe mondo mondo lila rasha premo gandho, grane jogi brindo joganonde motto hoy he, joy doyamoy, joy doyamoy, joy doyamoy. In the very next sentence again, bhavo sindhu jole bidhan komole, that same vidhan. It's used twice in the song. And it's being rendered here. So the first time it's the soft spring wind of the new day. It's Nabobidhan Boshanto Shomiran boy. So the Navavidhan, the soft spring wind of the Navavidhan. Keshab was very excited about this new sect and thought that this would revolutionize the world. And some people accused him of being a bit of a megalomaniac, especially toward the end of his life, thinking of himself as a guru and almost as a kind of incarnation. And his disciples certainly were like putting him on, 5 pedestals. And I just wanted to read to you. This is from a different entry from the Gospel when this Keshav's new dispensation came up in conversation. Ram, meaning Ramchandra Datta, who's a relative of Swamiji's. He says, he's criticizing Keshav Shen's new dispensation, Navavidhan. And he says, do you know what else he said, Keshav? Do you know what else Keshav said? He said that you too were a follower of the new dispensation. He's telling Sri Ramakrishna. All laugh. And then Sri Ramakrishna says, laughing, who knows? But as for myself, I don't even know what the term new dispensation means. And then laughter. It's really funny. But it's also so Sri Ramakrishna's.
Yeah, he doesn't say no.
No.
He doesn't say, he's not saying
No.
about it.
No, but I'm also thinking about these songs. He loved these songs, these Brahmo Samaj songs. And he would never, he always took what's best in every tradition, and was eager to learn, new songs. These are new songs. Some people are so traditional that they only want to listen to the old songs, Imagine somebody now a new guy like Trevor Hall, They're like, oh, no, I don't like that stuff. I like the old stuff, the traditional stuff. But he's not like that. He'll pick up anything that's good, anything that's new. That's good. Not anything that's new, but new stuff that's good. And what else do I want to say? No, that's about it. Okay, so let's continue. Next section is fascinating. He asked a devotee, do you ever have dreams? Devotee, yes, sir. The other day I dreamt a strange dream. I saw the whole world enveloped in water. There was water on all sides. A few boats were visible, but suddenly huge waves appeared and sank them. I was about to board a ship with a few others when we saw a Brahmin walking over that expanse of water. I asked him, how can you walk over the deep? The Brahmin said with a smile, oh, there is no difficulty about that. There is a bridge under the water. I said to him, where are you going? To Bhavanipur, the city of the Divine Mother, he replied. Wait a little, I cried. I shall accompany you. Master, oh, I am thrilled to hear the story. Devotee. Actually, the thrilled here is romancho. Romancho means my hair is standing on end. So that thrilled is not quite the same. Devotee. The Brahmin said, I am in a hurry. It will take you some time to get out of the boat. Goodbye. Remember this path and come after me. Master. Oh, my hair is standing on end. Please be initiated by a guru as soon as possible. Okay, there's some English issues here, which I want to point to. But before I do, he asked a devotee, do you ever have dreams? Who's the devotee? M himself. M, often, when he's recording his own private or kind of personal remarks, he shrouds it by calling himself a devotee or something else. He has a couple different names. But that's M himself. So devotee here, that dream was M narrating his own dream. And strange dream is not quite right. Ascharya, it's remarkable, really, something like that. Ascharya. The dream is wonderful. And that Brahmin, who's the Brahmin? I think it's probably Sri Ramakrishna. And the other thing, English-wise, though, at the very end, when Sri Ramakrishna says, oh, my hair is standing on end, please be initiated by a guru as soon as possible. What is strongly suggested here is, I'm not your guru. Right? Yeah, but the original Bengali is, Amar romancho hocche, my hair is standing on end. Tumi shigro mantra lo. Get a mantra quickly. No mention of buy a guru. So that's significant, I think. Because, of course, Sri Ramakrishna was his guru. Now, there is a question, historically speaking, about did Sri Ramakrishna give M a mantra? As far as we are aware, in terms of the existing literature, he never received mantra from Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna would give mantras in different ways, sometimes by writing it with his finger on the person's tongue. This happened to Vivekananda and a number of others. But it's not known that M received a mantra in that way. In fact, after Sri Ramakrishna left his body in 1886, Holy Mother is the one who initiated M eventually. But M was copiously and abundantly blessed by Sri Ramakrishna in many different ways. And, with Sri Ramakrishna, the thing is, he could transmit spirituality in so many different ways. I did a reading on Swami Vivekananda a few days ago when it was his birthday, and we saw how Sri Ramakrishna transmitted spirituality through wrestling, literally wrestling, like grapple moves. And so with M, of course he blessed him by, touching his head and touching different parts of his body. And M actually stayed with him. There's a recording, multiple chapters, where M stays with Sri Ramakrishna for 3 weeks at a stretch, which is huge for a householder to be just dropping everything 3 weeks. And he's groomed and trained by Sri Ramakrishna, and of course got so many different blessings. And so,
You think that he didn't receive initiation from him? Is that what you're saying?
no, I'm saying he didn't receive a mantra. That's not necessarily the same thing. So, when Sri Ramakrishna touches Naren, for instance, I don't even think that we know that Sri Ramakrishna gave Naren a mantra. But he was definitely, Naren was his disciple, and he blessed him in many ways and initiated him in different ways, but just not with a mantra as far as we're aware. Unless I'm saying something, anyone can correct me. I don't think Naren received a mantra either from Sri Ramakrishna. Maybe that's wrong. Anyway, but correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, dreams. This is really fascinating, and I think we need to just reflect on this a bit, and we can wrap it up. Sri Ramakrishna takes this dream very seriously and thinks it's a very positive spiritual sign that M had this dream, and that this dream is telling him something spiritually very, very significant. It's like you need to get initiated to get this next boost in your spiritual life. Sri Ramakrishna will say in other places that there are many different ways that people attain spiritual perfection. To some it happens very suddenly, hotat siddha, Bengali. And to others it happens in dream, shapna siddha. In a dream you can literally attain liberation. So he holds dreams in high esteem, actually. It doesn't mean that all dreams are spiritual, but they could be. And this reminds me actually of Ramanuja's take on dreams. Ramanuja, the great bhakta and the founder of Vishishtadvaita school of Vedanta, he's a bit of an outlier in Indian traditions because he takes dreams to be real. Real. It's a different state of consciousness, but that is as real as the waking state. It's not less real. And then the question is, so he talks about this in his, what's called the Sri Bhashya, his commentary on the Brahma Sutra. And there are a few sutras referring to the dream state, because there are 3 states in Vedanta. What are the 3 states? Waking, dream, and deep sleep. And then there's the 4th, Turiya, which is Brahman, beyond the 3 states. So there are a couple sutras in the Brahma Sutra referring to the state of dream. And in his commentary on those sutras, Ramanuja says that dreams are real and that the things you see in a dream are actually creations of God. Exactly like these pews and this, this iPad and whatever, these are all creations of God. Just so the creations that we see in dream, the things we see in dream are actually, they're not, he says specifically, these are not products of the mind, of our minds, the dreamer's mind. They're actually created by God. So it's very interesting. And Ramanuja himself had many spiritual dreams. So this stands in stark contrast. Sri Ramakrishna's very spiritual understanding of dreams, Ramanuja. This stands in contrast with Freud, Sigmund Freud, the great Austrian psychoanalyst, scientist. One of his most famous books is called Interpretation of Dreams, Traumdeutung in German. And he actually does talk about quote-unquote spiritual dreams that people have had, but he doesn't take them at face value. He says that what seem to be spiritual figures in your dreams are actually mundane. They're not at all spiritual. It could be, you think you're seeing God in a dream, actually that God is just a kind of father figure. And God is being stern with you because your father was a disciplinarian when you were younger, growing up, and you're traumatized by it. So he has this whole debunking way of understanding spiritual dreams and trying to show that every spiritual element in a dream is actually non-spiritual and something much more mundane and usually is traced back to some kind of childhood trauma or complex, Oedipus complex, this and that. Fortunately, Sri Ramakrishna, Ramanuja, they have a more positive spiritual take on dreams. And I think Jung also has a more, Carl Gustav Jung, who was a disciple of Freud and then kind of broke away. He also generally is just more open to spirituality and more open to appreciating the spiritual value of dreams. And we can finish with the next paragraph, and I'll open it to questions. Shortly before midnight, Narendra and the other devotees lay down on a bed made on the floor of the master's room. At dawn, some of the devotees were up. They saw the master, naked as a child, pacing up and down the room, repeating the names of the various gods and goddesses. His voice was sweet as nectar. Now he would look at the Ganges, now stop in front of the pictures hanging on the wall and bow down before them, chanting all the while the holy names in a sweet voice. He chanted Veda, Purana, Tantra, Gita, Gayatri, Bhagavata, Bhakta, Bhagavan. Referring to the Gita, he repeated many times, Tagi, Tagi, Tagi. Now and then he would say, O Mother, thou art verily Brahman, and thou art verily Shakti. Thou art Purusha, and thou art Prakriti. Thou art Virat, thou art the Absolute, and thou dost manifest thyself as the relative. Thou art verily the 24 cosmic principles. This is also a remarkable section. Okay, first of all, I need to read the Bengali here because it's very significant. I think what Sri Ramakrishna is doing here in the state of spiritual ecstasy, when he's naked like a child, when people are just waking up, the others, and they're seeing him speaking to himself or to God, he's creating a bunch of new mantras, holy mantras. He's creating them spontaneously. And there are 3 different mantras that he creates. And so in the original, Ved Puran Tantro. So that's Veda Purana Tantra. That's one mantra. Second mantra, Gita Gayatri. Gita Gayatri. Third mantra, Bhagavat Bhakto Bhagavan. These 3 mantras, notice each of these 3 mantras has the name of a scripture in it, at least one. So the first one is Veda, the Vedas, Purana, the Puranas, Tantra, all the different scriptures of the Tantras, Nirvana Tantra, Mahanirvana Tantra, and others. So that's one mantra. Why does he put them together? I don't want to give like the definitive answer. This is really worth reflecting on. Focus on each of these mantras, analyze them. What's significant about the mantra? How do we understand it? How do we interpret it? Veda, Purana, Tantra. What's your take on it? Do you guys have any thoughts on?
I don't even know how you're saying that he created these 3 mantras. Like, why do we know it was a mantra? I'm confused. He was saying it as one word?
Well, it's a little tricky in the original Bengali. It's a good question. Can you give her the mic, because I think this will be useful for the online audience too. You're asking, how do we know that they're mantras?
I'm just confused. Yeah, I don't know how you know that. I heard you read it all, and it kind of gives like a little, in one sentence, his entire philosophy, like on everything is everything, but I don't get
how
why
do you know they're
think...
mantras? That's a good question. The thing is, the English translation has semicolons separating the 3, what I'm calling mantras.
Oh.
Veda, Purana, Tantra, semicolon. Gita, Gayatri, semicolon. Bhagavata, Bhakta, Bhagavan, and then period. Okay, that's one signal. The interesting thing is, though, at least in my original Bengali edition, there aren't semicolons. The way that we know for sure that the last mantra is a mantra is because there are hyphens between the 3 words. Bhagavat, Bhakto, Bhagavan. There's hyphens connecting them. So that strongly suggests a mantra. And it's one that he brings up again and again in the gospel. It's very clearly a mantra. The other 2, I'm not sure that he repeats them elsewhere.
They just sound like categories to me. Like, you see, the first one is a category of scriptures, like this is equal to this is equal to this, and then the second one is same thing. They all feel like categories, 3 specific categories.
I agree.
And each category is trying to say something.
Yeah, I think you're right. I still think
Is
that
that
they're
what a
still
mantra
mantras. Yeah, I don't think that is mutually exclusive with them being mantras. And I like what you said about them. He's putting equal signs in a way. Bhagavat Bhakta Bhagavan, I think, very strongly suggests Bhagavata is the Bhagavata Purana, the great Vaishnava scripture, equals Bhakta, so the devotee of Krishna, and Bhagavan, Krishna himself, are one and the same in a certain radical sense.
That's clear.
Yeah, and I think he's doing the same thing.
With the scriptures.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know.
So I think, but then why not mantra is my question.
I'm just saying, what does it matter? Like, what does it do?
Because
What does it do to
mantra,
make it a mantra?
Manana trayate mantra iti mantraha, which means a mantra, this is a kind of folk etymology of, or kind of spiritual etymology of the term. It may not be literally true that it's the etymological meaning of the term, but manana trayate iti mantraha means a mantra is that by repeating which one attains the highest spiritual goal. So if it's a mantra, just repeating it is a holy and auspicious thing, and it can take you to the highest. That's the idea.
Well, that makes sense, and I can see how each of them is a lesson in and of itself.
Like, it's not just a category, it's not
Yeah.
just a simile, but it's also a whole spiritual lesson.
Well, yeah.
Each one of the three
exactly.
goes, yeah,
If
yeah.
you take them as equal signs, right?
And if
it
that's
means
what that
Veda,
means, yeah.
All the great four Vedas, the basis of Hinduism, and all the Puranas, the devotional scriptures,
Yeah.
and all of the Tantric
yeah.
scriptures are actually pointing to one and the same infinite divine reality, and so there's a whole philosophy behind it and a spiritual kind of power to it. The next one is also interesting.
Yeah.
Here, for a different reason. Gita, of course, Bhagavad Gita, it's a great scripture. Gayatri is the Gayatri mantra.
Right.
Yeah. And another reason why, sorry, you want to give the mic to Dinesh?
And the Gayatri has to do with the dawning of knowledge and the remover of ignorance.
Yeah.
Right.
And praying directly for the removal of ignorance. And the other thing is that strongly suggests it's a mantra is the alliteration. He was a great wordsmith, and he was very, very good at alliteration. Kamani Kanchan, you know, Bhagavat Bhakta Bhagavan, BH, everything, each word begins with a bha. Here it's Gita Gayatri, GG, Gita Gayatri. All these suggest that the words themselves have a certain power, and that spontaneously Divine Mother, you know, made him craft these as mantras, and he's giving to the world these divine mantras. That's what I'm saying. Just imagine, like, you were initiated, right? You're given that mantra, you give it that kind of seriousness, that importance. I'm saying this is a moment when he's actually creating, naked as a baby, right at the, you know, right in the morning, when people are waking up and hearing him uttering these mantras. It's really a remarkable thing, actually. It's a great blessing. Oh, that's interesting.
They're all being very
Ooh, I like the,
peacefully waking up.
We can connect it with the previous thing now. When Sri Ramakrishna says you need to get initiation as soon as possible, literally the next morning they wake up and see Sri Ramakrishna uttering these mantras.
And
So
they're in such a receptive state
That's
after
nice.
just waking up, and then he's walking
I love that.
around.
It's like Brahma Muhurta, right at the dawn, right when you're most receptive spiritually, and Sri Ramakrishna is in a state of ecstasy, and literally giving them a mantra. So here's a case, you can make a case that Sri Ramakrishna is giving him the mantra that he said that he should get. It's interesting. And the other thing is, I think it's very significant that each of these three mantras has scriptures, Hindu scriptures in them. Veda, Purana, Tantra, Gita, Bhagavata, all these are Hindu scriptures. I think it's important to see, what is he doing when he's putting equal signs next to these things? He's equating the scripture with God, right? And the mantra itself with God, Nama Namni. He would often say that the name of God and God are one and the same. And that's significant because in other parts of the gospel, when he talks about scripture, sometimes if you read them out of context, just in isolation, you might think he's putting down the scriptures. He's slightly denigrating them. He'll say things like, scriptures are only useful in the initial stage. He says it's an example is like if you have a shopping list. We have our grocery shopper here. And you have a list of 10 things, and then you suddenly lose the list. What do you do? Yeah, where'd my list go? Where's my list? I can't go to Smart and Final without the list. And then, I found the list again. And then you memorize the list, what's on the list. And then he says, once you memorize what's on the list, throw it away. He says, just so are the scriptures. They'll tell you what your destination is, how to get from point A to point B, and then you don't need them anymore. And then you got to get to hard work, engaging in spiritual practice and so on and so forth. It might make it seem as if he's not placing much value on scripture. He often warns against learning too much or studying the scriptures too much, it might go to your head, it might make you egoistic. The point of life is not to become a pundit. But here, I think everything with Sri Ramakrishna, you always need to take his teachings in context. If you want to understand Sri Ramakrishna's overall views on scriptures, you have to look at everything he says about the scriptures, including these very lofty statements, which are mantras, in where he's seems to be equating scriptures with God. Yeah, any online questions?
The thing that really struck me here is how he says, "Thou art verily Shakti, thou art Purusha, and thou art Prakriti."
Yeah.
He like puts it all together there. He puts Purusha and
Well,
Prakriti
this is-
as the mother.
Oh, yeah,
It's like-
absolutely. I mean, this is, I have a field day with
like,
this
wow.
because it's all Vijnana here. And so he's directly addressing Divine Mother. The whole thing is Vijnana. And because literally everything he is God, his Divine Mother.
But he's just like saying,
Yeah. Okay, so go ahead. And
Why didn't M take initiation from Thakur, or was Thakur not initiating householders?
Oh, it's nothing like that. And the thing is, initiation, remember, initiation and mantra initiation are not necessarily the same thing. I think Sri Ramakrishna initiated plenty of people in many different ways. As I said, initiation through wrestling with Vivekananda. He also gave a mantra. And then there's initiation through touch, often. There's Kalpataru Day, the famous January 1st in Kashipur, when he blessed people and may your consciousness be awakened. That's a kind of initiation. I mean, what does initiation mean? It means some kind of spiritual awakening, right, of some sort. And so he did it in many different ways, and he never made that kind of distinction between householders and non-householders. And I only initiate the future monastics. No, nothing like that. How do you understand what God does and, how he decides to initiate people into spiritual life? That's his own thing. He also wanted Holy Mother to, he told her, and he was grooming her to be a guru after he leaves his body. And so he left some of his disciples to be initiated by her. Yogananda Ji was her first disciple, and M was also one of the very early disciples of Holy Mother. And that has its own significance. I mean, there's a lot of kind of spiritual significance, these things which are not easy for us to understand. It's kind of shrouded in mystery. And I wanted to point out a couple translation things here regarding the last few statements that Narayana likes so much. Okay, the thou here is so clunky. It sounds very Victorian. So, oh mother, you are indeed Brahman and you are Shakti. It's really very emphatic. You are Brahman and you are Shakti. So he would say, the Vijnani knows that Brahman and Shakti are inseparable. Right? That reality which is nirguna is also saguna. That reality which is personal is also impersonal. You are Purusha, you are Prakriti. Here, and then it's strange in the English translation, thou art Virat. These are all pairs, notice, so far. Brahman and Shakti. Purusha, Prakriti. Now suddenly, you are Virat. Well, what's the original? Not that. There's a pair, which is missing somehow. Tumi Virat, Tumi Sharat. You are Virat, you are Swarat. That's a pair. What does it mean? You are the macrocosm, you are the microcosm. You are the universal, you are the individual. So it's really strange that I think it just is a simple oversight, like he missed the Swarat part of that pair, the Virat-Swarat pair. And then, thou art the absolute, and thou dost manifest thyself as the relative. Here, what are the terms used? Listen to the Bengali, how succinct it is. Tumi nitto, tumi lilamoy. That's it. And it's, thou art the absolute and thou dost manifest thyself as the relative with a capital R. And, which is really clunky. But also relative, I don't like it. Because it smacks of this two-tier ontology of classical Advaita Vedanta, of Shankara school, where there's the ultimate standpoint, the Paramatika standpoint, which alone is real, and then there's this empirical standpoint, which is the standpoint of ignorance. So long as you don't know Brahman, you see this world appearance, this illusory world, this dream. That's definitely not at all what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. How do we know that? What's the original? Tumi nitto tumi lilamoy. See, this is something that Swami Tapasanaji would point out, one of our great monks who was a vice president of our order. He would say, Shankara's Advaita Vedanta opposes Satya with Mithya. What's real, which is Brahman alone, with everything else, which is unreal, right? Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. And Tapasanaji said, what Sri Ramakrishna did is to replace the Satya Mithya paradigm, what's real and what's unreal, what's true and what's an illusion, with the Nitya Leela paradigm. And we have Leela right here. So we just need Nitya to complement her. Yeah. So Nitya is what Niklanji renders as the absolute. That again also has this kind of, absolute seems to imply, I think, more the impersonal absolute maybe. I don't think it suggests as much the personal God, but I think Nitya is a broader term. It just means the eternal, okay, with a capital E. That could equally refer to Shakti, in my opinion. So, O Mother, you are Nitya, you also are Lila Mai. Lila Mai. You are that ever blissful, playful mother. Lila Mai. So it's the Nitya Lila. That's the pairing. That's the complementarity. The eternal, and then the temporary but still real play, cosmic play of Divine Mother. This entire world of names and forms. It's God's Leela. It's not the relative implying that it's somehow lower or lesser or just empirically real. No. It's her cosmic play. Okay? Does that make sense? And then Tumi Chotu Bingshit Tattva. You are the 24 cosmic principles. This again is directly on the, he's speaking as a Vijnani here. Because he says the Vijnani sees that Brahman has become the 24 cosmic principles. There's nothing but the divine everywhere. And he's seeing this, and that's wonderful. Thank you for pointing that out, because I'd never thought of that until you mentioned that, but that we could really think about these mantras that he's saying in this state of spiritual ecstasy as a kind of mantra initiation to those who are there, Naren and M, and I think Hazra's there. So that's wonderful. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Yeah. Mike? Yeah.
I also find it interesting on the question of M's mantra that it follows the dream. If he didn't get a mantra from Ramakrishna, then Ramakrishna says the sadhu says in the dream, I have to go now. It'll take you time to get down. I'll leave, but you'll see the path to follow. Right. So he leaves Ma Sarada to initiate
that's nice.
After he's gone.
Right. It will take you some time to get out of the boat. Goodbye. Remember this path and come after me. That's nice. Yeah. So you could read that into it. That like this dream also implies that he's going to eventually get initiation from Holy Mother. Yeah. There's a lot here. I mean, we could do a whole spiritual interpretation of dreams and out Freud with our analyses. Okay. Any last thoughts or questions? Thank you. That was great. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.